but I've got plenty of length for a primitive, so I'll lose some off that end and some off this end. But it's really a matter of where is the bow biased, to this side or sitting on this crown, or where's the bow going to be. You know, I just saw it to length first, then have another look. The end that had the big knot on, that's looking quite nice. Yeah, that's the other end. You can see this funny bit here. I think that's where there's some growth on the top. And it's a nice illustration of how the heart sap boundary isn't concentric like you see it in illustrations. Anyway, so I might cut back a little bit from there. Anyhow, I've got a lovely clean length now. Here's down at 66 inches of good clean length. I've now established a relatively clean flat face, which will enable me to saw off the bulk of the heartwood. As it is, I'm going to have to reduce some of that sapwood. So what you're going to end up with is the bow is going to sit cross section of the bow will sit something like that, in theory. Now we have a roughed out stave. It's not even roughed out to being a bow, it's a stave. It looks like you've got 20mm of sapwood. Of course you haven't. When you measure it there like that, you actually got 10mm. It's because it's cut on an angle. Even if we sawed straight off there, you'd think, oh, I've only got sapwood left. Well, you haven't. You've got a bit of heartwood in here. Blimey, would you add and leave it? I've started roughing this down. I've got it to a rough profile, taken some of the depth off. But obviously I've got all this thick sapwood to remove. And it's all absolutely perfect clean. So I've taken it down a bit. I've not gone mad. But the problem, of course, is you're trying to follow the curve of the sapwood and not hit the heartwood, but you don't know what the heartwood's doing inside. And then you sort of hit a little bit like this. And well, how can there be a strip of heartwood there when there's all that sapwood showing there? Yeah, that's funny. Never mind. I thought this was going to be a boring stave with no character, and then I'm working on the other limb and that appears. What on earth? And I think, judging by that black bit, I think that's a little shoot growing up alongside the main trunk. See that on tall vertical or trunks of yew, they get little sprouts that grow up alongside, or probably growing up this way. I think that's what that is. That was then completely covered over with clean sapwood. There was nothing to see on the outside of the tree at all. So that'll be a feature. But looking at the thickness of sapwood either side of it, you wonder how on earth that can happen. So I'll draw a little sketch of what I think might be going on inside. Now my guess is it's either like this, where you've got the heartwood swells up in a ridge. And of course you'll have noticed from earlier videos that the line between heart and sap doesn't follow a growth ring. It doesn't have to at all. The other theory is maybe it's one of these little shoots that was growing up alongside the trunk and then got grown over. But the back, where the bark and the back showed perfectly clean and clear. So we don't actually know what's inside. And of course that's a hard thing. You're working through sapwood, working down towards something you can't even see. So it's a bit difficult. There's a classic illustration of how the heart sap boundary doesn't follow a growth ring, and it can just swell up randomly like a volcano. And you can see the reason for this one. There's obviously, you know, well, there is a knot there. The one at this end is just plain weird, but I'm assuming that is like the end of a branch. I mean, worst case, highly unlikely I could chisel out a long thin narrow groove and lay in a bit of sapwood that I've taken from one of the offcuts. But I mean, if one wasn't trying to make a bow and you were just being curious, you'd saw that in half across there and look at the cross section. But yeah, as soon as you think something's just too easy and too boring, it will bite you on the arse.